What's up, guys? We are jumping into a brand new line today, one that I have been eagerly awaiting ever since we got the first taste of these months and months back. We're taking a look today at a new Bandai Tamashii Nations line of Gundam figures. We're taking a look at the Gundam Universe line, and we're going to go through these in order. And the first figure in this line is just the original, the RX-78-2, the Gundam, the classic Gundam, and then this is designated GU01, so they're numbering all of these figures as well. So I'm really excited for this line because we have not had an affordable Gundam figure line in, what, 15 plus years at this point? We've had Robot Spirits for a really long time, but they are in many cases prohibitively expensive. They're far more than I usually want to pay. So this is exactly what I have been clamoring for a long time, and I think that we're onto something really cool here. So let's take a look at packaging real quick. We've got them in a pretty large format style box. You've got a flap at the top with the branding, and then you've got the figure in a small window that's covered by some really fantastic artwork of the Gundam, and then we've got a shot of the Gundam on the side, and then the back of the package has a space motif with a bunch of shots of the figure showing off the product, how it moves, things like that. And then you've got a little bit of cross-sell for the Wing Gundam and the Unicorn Gundam that also are in this wave. So let's do it. Let's pull this one out and take a look. All right, and here he is out of the package, our RX-78-2 Gundam, the Gundam for really all intents and purposes. And I am so far pretty happy with what I'm seeing with this line. After quickly playing around with this figure, I can tell you that this is interesting. It's not really what I expected it to be, but it's also exactly what I kind of wanted too, because I've really wanted, again, like I said, I really wanted a more affordable Gundam figure line that I can get into, because I love Gundam stuff, and I have been a Gundam fan since, I don't know, the late 80s at this point, and I have not been building models really at all for a very long time, just isn't my thing anymore, and I've really wanted to get into Gundam stuff, but Robot Spirits is just way too expensive for me to buy en masse. They can get crazy expensive, but having figures like this are really doing it for me. So I'm pretty happy that Bandai Tamashii Nations is putting them out to begin with, but I think collectors and people who just want to have some fun toys are probably going to be pretty happy with these. So let's take a look at how this guy moves around to start with. He moves around, the best way I can describe it is that this guy moves around like a model kit. A lot of the joints look like model kit joints, and it's just very reminiscent of a model kit. That's really the easy way to describe it. So the head can look up a little bit, he can look down, he can bobble side to side, and then you've got rotation. The arms and the shoulder cap will move. They don't move together necessarily. The shoulder cap can move independent a little bit, but then the arm can move all the way around, and then you do have full rotation. There is a really high bicep swivel, so it's basically at the shoulder. You do have what looks to be double jointed elbows, but they really only go about 90 degrees. And then you've got wrist rotation with a wobble back and forth. This is just a straight ball peg, so you've got some motion. Of course, it's a very boxy design, so it does kind of get stuck there right away. Your torso can go backwards a little bit, and then he goes down. He does bobble side to side a little bit, and then you do have a little bit of a twist up there as well. So he doesn't move incredibly dynamically, but he's also a giant robot, so I don't really mind so much here. It doesn't really bother me all that much. The legs go out pretty decently, and all of the panels on the waist piece do move, so you can kind of help to aid your movement there. They kind of move out of the way because they're actually hinged. They have little ball pegs that stick into the, I guess what you'd call the belt, and then he kicks forward about 90 degrees. If you really push it, you just have to work the panels to get it up there. And then you do have a thigh cut. He can go backwards. You do have your double jointed knees, and they're pretty good. They're certainly more than 90, but again, robotic design, so I don't really worry too much about it. You've got a straight ball peg that goes down into the foot, so he can hinge backwards, and there's also a hinge that's up here at the top of the ankle, if you want to call it that. And then you can go forwards. You can rock side to side pretty well, and then there is some rotation, but that ball joint is really tight. And there's also the cuff pieces on the top of the foot. These are articulated as well. There's a ball peg that goes into the inside of the foot, so there's nothing connecting this side, but it's really rigid, so it's not going to sag or anything. So as you move the foot, you can move this around to kind of cover the gap that you create. So that's kind of a nice touch. It is a little bit of a pain to make it work. at least so far for me, but it does work, and it's a nice little thing so you don't have this big gray hunk of plastic showing underneath your foot just because you happen to move it. So this guy does move pretty well. Again, he's kind of what I expected, but also not what I expected. He really does move a lot like what I think a model kit moves like, and I can understand why. It was just a little bit of a shock to see that. I just went into this expecting this is going to be kind of like a dumbed down figure arts almost, but it's definitely not. It's really more of just a model kit that happens to be a toy in terms of how I think this guy moves around, which is not a negative, it's just a difference. Now, as far as the overall look and feel here, I am pretty happy with this guy. I do think that there is maybe a necessity to get some panel lining on him at some point, but this is an action figure line, so I kind of expected that we weren't going to get stuff like that. I kind of figure, yeah, you're going to get like a factory fresh figure almost. So this is what the RX-78-2 looked like when he rolled off the production floor, basically. And I do think that they did a pretty good job here. So in the sense that he kind of moves like a model kit, he kind of looks like a model kit too. It's just already built, and it is definitely an action figure. You can tell that it's a little more rigid right when you first get it, that it's definitely doesn't feel like it could fall apart if you drop it on the floor. I don't think that it's going to fall apart. I haven't tested that theory, but I'm pretty sure I am correct. So there is a rather large lack of paint on this figure, and that's not necessarily a negative here. It's a robot, so the figure, the composition of the toy should be sections of metal, basically. And so the legs would be white, and they're white. The arms should be white, and they're white. So it's not really like a negative thing. It's just something that, you have to kind of point out. So there is a little bit. There's some on the face, and there's some down here on the belt, but a lot of this is just cast plastic, but it does work just fine for me. The only thing, again, that I think might come in use down the line is just some panel lining for me personally, but I do think that the proportions look pretty good. I like the luster on him. He's not too shiny, but he's also not too matte. The colors, while being cast plastic, are incredibly vibrant, especially that blue and the yellow. They very well pop against each other, and it's just a classic design, and I think Bandai did a pretty good job of translating this into figure form. And then you've got your head sculpt up here, which is pretty nicely done. You've got some metallic paint on there for the eyes. You've got the black inset kind of vents on the side of the head, and then of course the classic V-shape for the visor up there, which is nicely done. Everything just looks kind of like I expect it to, and that's really what I wanted to see here. I wanted a 6-inch line that wasn't going to break the bank, that looked like the figure, that looked like the character, or the robot rather, in the show, and I think Bandai did a really good job here to bring these figures into life while kind of retaining a lot of the same stuff that makes the model kits look the way they do and then move the way they do. Now, for size comparisons, here is an idea of what this figure looks like scaled next to some other stuff. So in comparison to a Robot Spirits figure, this is the only Robot Spirits I have access to right now, the recent Camphor. And you can see the Camphor is slightly shorter. It should not be smaller than this Gundam, though. The Camphor was actually quite large. And then here he is next to an old MSIA Mobile Suits in Action Sandrock Gundam. So you can see that they don't scale at all, and they're not really intended to by any means, but you can get an idea of how big this guy is in comparison to an older Gundam figure. And then here he is next to the most recent SH Figure Arts Goku. So they scale pretty well in terms of just sheer height. Of course, they don't scale at all, but he is about the same height as our Gundam here. And then here he is next to a non-import Black Series Darth Maul figure, and you can see that they are, again, just like Goku, about the same height. So he scales pretty decently with a lot of your standard 6-inch-ish figures, but at the same time, he doesn't scale with them because this guy is supposed to be incredibly massive in comparison to Goku and, of course, Darth Maul. Now for accessories, this guy comes pretty well stocked, and I'm really happy with his array here. So you've obviously got a beam saber, and we've got him holding stuff this time around. So we've got a trigger finger hand replacement for his right, and a gripping hand replacement for his left. So you've got the beam sabers, and he does come with 2 of them, and they do come apart, because as you can see, the hilts go in the backpack. So you've got these 2 pink beams, and then you've got 2 hilts for that. We've got his shield here, which does have a little yellow paint on it for the cross, and it works really nicely. He holds the handle in his hand, and then it pegs into his wrist as well, but it also has storage on his back. So the same peg that he uses on his wrist actually goes in this slot on his backpack. So if you want to have it on his back, you have that option. And then he comes with his beam cannon here, which is just done up in a black kind of gray plastic, and it's got the gold scope here. This guy is movable. so it does kind of bobble around. It's actually a separate piece entirely, so watch out, you might pop it off. And then the last thing that he has is a Tamashii Act 5 stand adapter. I don't have any of those to demo, but he's got that if you so choose. So he comes with a bunch of stuff, and I think for the price point, he's pretty well loaded. So overall, this guy really fits the bill for me. At a personal level, this is, again, exactly what I wanted. An import Gundam action figure line that is not going to break the bank, and Bandai has absolutely succeeded. I truly hope that this line has some legs and that we can get some teams done, or at least some shows finished, and maybe they can branch into non-Gundams and do some mobile suits as well. But this is a great action figure. I'm really, really happy with the way it turned out. If anything, my only real gripe is that it needs a little panel lining maybe, but that's also not really a necessity. That's just sort of a personal preference. Otherwise, I think it's a pretty stellar toy. It moves really well for a giant robot figure, and it just looks cool, and it comes with all the accessories I wanted to have. So for the price, I'd say if you're a Gundam fan, this is just something to jump into right away. You're probably not going to be disappointed. I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. So that's going to do it for this look at the Bandai Tamashii Nations Gundam Universe RX-78-2 figure. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.